안녕하세요 여러분, 저는 Jenny예요. Hello everyone, my name is Jenny, and today we're going to be talking about 으려고, in order to do something. So you use this to express the intent or purpose of an action. This might sound a little bit familiar, and you might be wondering, didn't we learn this already? But we'll explain the differences in a later slide. So yes, this has the same meaning as in order to do some action, and it's always attached directly to the end of the verb stems. If the verb stem ends in a consonant, use 으려고, so 먹다 becomes 먹으려고, in order to eat. If it ends in a vowel, use 려고, so 만나다 becomes 만나려고. This can be a little bit tricky to pronounce because of the 려 here, so just take your time, practice, make sure you're comfortable with saying it. 려고, 으려고. The subject of the clause preceding 으려고 must be the same as the subject as the clause that follows. So what this is saying is that you have to have the same subject throughout the sentence. You cannot switch the subject halfway through because it won't make sense. And we have an example here. So 안디 씨가 집에서 생일 파티를 하려고 안디 씨가 케이크를 샀어요. This makes sense. In order to have a birthday party at his house, Andy bought a cake. Same subject. The subject is Andy, and we know this because of the subject marker. Hello. If we change the subject and we don't keep it the same way all the way through, it will be something like 안디 씨가 집에서 생일 파티를 하려고 미나 씨가 케이크를 샀어요. Now we might drop this, we might not need the subject, but even if it's dropped, you should still have the same subject. You cannot mean that in order to have a party at your house, somebody else got the cake. It needs to have the same subject. Tense is shown at the end of the sentence, so that means you only conjugate the last verb. You do not conjugate the verb that 으려고 is attached to, and it's not used with future tense because 으려고 already implies future tense. It's something that you're planning on doing, so you don't need to use the future tense with it because it is future tense. Now, it looks like Ji-hoon has a film final due tomorrow, and he's kind of stressed about it, so let's see how he reacts. The clause following 으려고 cannot be a suggestion or a command. So you cannot use it with any of these forms. You can use it with 아요, 어요, 해요 form by itself, but not if it's used in conjunction with 같이, together, because that implies a suggestion. These are irregulars down at the bottom. So 디귿 irregulars, you change the 디귿 at the bottom to a lion, and it becomes 들으려고. 비읍 irregulars, you drop and then you replace it with an u, or you can say that you just switch the 비읍 for an u. So 도우려고, in order to help. 리을 irregular, you treat kind of the same as a vowel, you just add 려고. 만들려고, in order to make. So 음악을 들으려고, in order to listen to music. 사람들을 도우려고, in order to help people. 이메일 주소를 만들려고 해요, in order to create an email address. 영어학 어렵고 형이 저보다 돈을 더 많이 벌어요. 영어학, film studies, is difficult, and my older brother makes more money than me. 전공을 바꾸고 싶어요. I want to change my major. This is what you learned in Unit 6 of the 1B book. So this is what you might be familiar with already. 으려고 해요. It's placed at the end of the sentence, whereas the one we're learning currently is placed in the middle. And 으려고 해요 expresses the speaker's intention or future plan to do something, similar to this one. So you translate it as I plan to, I intend to, I hope to do something, I am about to do something. 은행에서 돈을 찾으려고 해요. I plan to withdraw my money from the bank. However, with 으려고 해요, you can only have one action. Whereas 으려고, you are kind of connecting two actions together. In order to do one thing, I am doing this other thing. Whereas this is just, I have a plan to do one thing. 14시간 동안 자려고 해요. I plan to sleep for 14 hours. One action. 지금 지금 경한테 문자 메시지를 보내려고 해요. I plan to send my older brother a text message. Now you might be thinking that 으려고 also shares some similarities with 으러. And you might be thinking, aren't they the same thing? They are not. They are both translated as in order to do something, but they do have different limitations and different uses. So let's take a look at those quickly. 으려 can only use the verbs 가다 and 오다, as well as their compounds like 들어가다, 들어오다, 나가다, 나오다. 으려고 can be used with any verb. Another difference is that 으려 can be used to make suggestions. So you can use it with 을까요, 읍시다, 같이 아요, 오요, or commands like 어주세요 or 우세요. 으려고 cannot be used for suggestions or commands. So I have a chart down here, tells you at a glance their limitations and what they can be used for. 으려 is limited because you can only use two verbs. But it's not limited because you can make suggestions or commands. 으려고 is not limited because you can use any verb, but it's limited because you cannot make suggestions and commands. 형, 질문이 있어요. 형, I have a question. 뭐예요? 형은 동역사예요. Here, 형 is a term that men or boys will use to address an older male, and even if they're not biologically related, it translates to as older brother. However, in this context, Jihoon is using it in place of you, because you is not really a word used in Korean. Most people will not say you at all, and it's just implied by context, or they will replace you with the relationship to the speaker. So if you're talking to your boss, you might say 사장님, or in this case, this man is Jihoon's 형, so he just calls him 형. So this you would translate as you are an interpreter. 형은 통역사예요. 통역사, interpreter. 저도 통역사가 되고 싶어요. I also want to become an interpreter. 어떻게 해야 해요? What should I do in order to do the same work that you do? And his 형 says, 통역 일을 하려고, in order to do 통역 work, 영어하고 한국어를 잘 해야 해요. You have to know both English and Korean well. You have to do both of these things well. The difference between translating and interpreting is that translators, translating, 번역, works with the written text. So they're the ones that are creating the subtitles for K-dramas and for the Korean music videos. They work with books, contracts, and websites, so written word. Whereas interpreters, 통역, interpreting, they work with the spoken or sign language. So they are the ones translating in real time in medical appointments, court proceedings, and conferences. 번역사 is translator, 통역사, interpreter. 영어를 잘 해야 해요. I have to know English well. 그래서 영어 단어가 알아야 해요. So I have to know 영어 단어. I have to know English words, English vocabulary. 단어를 외우려고, in order to memorize vocabulary. 외우다 is to memorize. 책을 읽을 거예요. I'm going to read books in order to memorize English vocabulary. 영어를 공부하려고 책을 사야 해요. In order to study English, I have to buy books. 영어를 매일 공부하고 있어요. I am studying English every day. 하고 있다, or 고 있다, to be doing something continuously, routinely, or an ongoing action. 하지만 요즘 책을 읽지 않아요. But these days, I don't really read books. 영어를 봐요. I watch English language movies. 공부할 때, this is something that you haven't quite learned yet. You will be learning it later, but it just translates to as when I study. 낮잠을 자지 않으려고, in order to not take a nap, in order to not fall asleep. 커피 5잔 마셔요. I drink 5 cups of coffee. Jihoon puts a disclaimer saying that this is definitely not an excuse to drink coffee. It is definitely necessary. 영어를 더 잘하려고. 잘하다 is to do something well. So in order to do English better, in order to be able to speak English better, Language Lab 선생님하고 만나요. He meets a teacher from his school's language lab. 지각하지 않으려고, in order to not be late, 알람 시계를 여러 개를 맞춘 다음에 잤어요. I went to sleep after setting several alarms. So 알람 시계, alarm clock, 여러 개, several. 맞추다 is like set, so set your alarm clock. After he did that, he went to sleep. 안녕하세요. 저는 영어 선생님하고 만나려고 왔습니다. Hello, I came here in order to meet a English language teacher. 지훈 씨, 오랜만이에요. 지훈, it's been forever. It's been a long time. 안디 씨가 영어를 가르쳐요? You teach English, Andy? 네, 맞아요. 시작할까요? Yeah, that's right. Should we begin? 미안해요. 마음을 바꿨어요. I'm sorry. My mind has changed. I've changed my mind. 저는 영어를 계속 공부할 거예요. I'm going to continue studying movies. Definitely not because he doesn't want to meet with Andy one-on-one. And Jihoon would like to thank you for watching his short film, The English Tutor, a Jihoon production film where he did almost everything by himself. Guest starring Andy. That is it for this lesson. 잘했어요. 다음에 봐요. See you later.